Welcome to the CISO Signal True Cybercrime Podcast. I'm Jeremy Ladner. On this episode, we step into a new kind of darkness, a world where the tools of creativity have been twisted into weapons of deception. We're no longer talking about masked figures breaking through doors or hackers exploiting fragile lines of code. The enemy has evolved and it wears a familiar face. It speaks with a voice you know in a meeting you thought was real. This is the new frontier of fraud, where trust is not a currency but a vulnerability, and the most sophisticated heists are pulled off not by compromising a system, but by convincing a human. In early 2024, a finance employee at a global engineering firm received an email, a seemingly standard request for a wire transfer. They were initially suspicious, as they were trained to be, but the criminals were prepared. They didn't just send a fake link or a malicious attachment. They engineered a meeting, a video conference where the faces and voices of senior executives appeared with a chillingly perfect authenticity. The employees saw their CFO, heard his voice, and watched as other colleagues nodded along. All a digital mirage created by AI. In a matter of minutes, more than $25 million was gone, spirited away to foreign bank accounts, leaving behind a profound and unsettling question. How do you defend against a lie when it looks and sounds like the truth? To help us investigate this unsettling new reality, we have a guest who has spent his career at the intersection of high-growth technology and security, understanding how to build resilient organizations from the ground up. As the Chief Information Security Officer at Netlify, he's a veteran in the startup space with a proven track record of securing companies through periods of rapid scale and major transformation. He's a leader who understands not just the technical threats, but also the human and cultural challenges that come with building trust in a digital world. This week's guest CISO co-host is Mark Dorsi. Mark, welcome to the CISO Signal. So happy to have you here.
Yeah, I love being here. Thanks so much for the warm introduction. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Before we dive into the investigation, is there anything you want to add to your bio, some background that the audience should know about?
Overall, I'm a startup specialist, and I've been a part of startups throughout my entire career. And I just really love trying to help make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. And so I'm always happy to spend time chat with the up-and-coming founders of the world, those folks out there that are trying to do just that. And so they're always free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to always chat with them about the next thing that they're going to bring to us to try and help defend us against those adversaries out there that are adapting and overcoming all of the controls we've already put in place.
Excellent. All right, Mark, are you ready? Let's get started with the investigation.
Absolutely.
We are in the midst of a ceaseless war, not of bombs or bullets, but of breaches, firewalls, and silent incursions. The targets? Our borders, our banks, our commerce, and the critical infrastructure that underpins a free civilization. The enemy is cloaked in code, fueled by greed, glory, and a desire for chaos. This is the story of the unseen protectors, the nameless generals, the CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers. They are the guardians at the gate, the watchers on the wall, ever vigilant and always listening for the CISO signal. One of the really interesting things about this particular attack was that the person on the inside, the employee, the victim of the social engineering essentially, had their suspicions. They were not so trusting. And they said, I don't know about this. And there was pushback. And then that led to the invitation to a video conference where the CFO and all the coworkers, not in actuality, but their AI doppelgangers were there. How do you think that changed the trajectory, and what kind of planning would you imagine was involved in advance where, okay, this sort of chess match, if the employee says A, we'll have to do B, and if he says this, then we'll do that. Walk me through what you think that would, if you're sort of going to profile them and prepare others for this sort of attack.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's not actually, especially with ChatGPT and those sorts of things today, where you can just dive straight in and bring, through what might be some objections that someone might have to a scenario in this case. And in which case, quickly you'll see that an individual who wants to help and look good in front of the organization and deliver something at a very high quality and high level, they'll tend to err towards trust, especially when it comes to some senior management, those sorts of things that are on the phone. And that's where the ability to separate roles and responsibilities within an org is really important. Someone who's able to just wire on their own, $25 million, and maybe they had to go through a couple of internal hoops. But again, it all comes back to that simple question, why are we doing this now? Who have we spoken with? What are the procedures you need to go through in order to get this done? And sure, it can add friction to a moment, but it's really important. So as I profile that individual on the other end, it's, all right, I would have absolutely asked ChatGPT what might the objections be from an employee and putting together an incident response test. I've done this, by the way.
Right.
And those objections can then just be quickly met. The most recent one that I did leverage ChatGPT. So I perform these things for organizations as well. Right. And so I was able to, without ever speaking to an individual and without any prior engagement, I was able to completely reset a password as well as the 2FA token without ever having to speak with an individual. And the way that I was able to get that done and using ChatGPT was through persistence. And I just used the straight phrases that it provided me. And I was then able to be successful as far as, all right, tell me what I need to say next. And it just walked me through the entire operation on what I needed to do on the other side. So a little bit of preparation goes a long way, but the ability to see that person, have that individual speak directly to you can be a real challenge as far as questioning authority, right? I have them on the phone. I can see them. They're letting me know what I need to do. And it's always about the same fundamentals. Is there a sense of urgency? Why is this urgent now? And why can't it wait until, Monday when we normally do these sort of things, or the end of the month when this might normally happen?
So with that in mind, and with the brilliance of hindsight, what are some of the low-tech, high-impact protocols a company can put in place to verify these high-value transactions, especially when they involve remote teams who are working off-site? I think this place, in this instance, he was in Hong Kong and the CFO was in the UK. What would you suggest?
Well, this is where I tell folks you can start small and go big. That, to me, is where you really need to be, is the regular cadence of business, right? So we're in the business of doing business. Let's get down to business, to quote Monty Brewster. And if you're going to do that, I would say you would not just go off and do a wire transfer on a random Monday for $25 million. Now, it could be that particular org has a cadence of that. Yeah. In which case they probably need to go back and revisit just how important is, mid-period wire transfer activity. How important is that to the business versus knowing that you won't lose that type of money? And the individual, right? They took it pretty hard on themselves after being at that business for all those years, right? They made a huge error in judgment. But in that moment in time, right? Even they could fall subject to that, right? I think it was after 27 years of being a part of the organization. You've done well all of these years, and then of course you're tricked by the latest, greatest technology, when in reality, the organization really just needed to have some better controls in place so that you were never tricked in the first place.
Act 1, the uncanny valley. You're traveling through another dimension, a dimension not of sight and sound, but of ones and zeros. Our destination is a world-class engineering firm, Arup, a name synonymous with structure and stability. They built the foundation for some of the world's most iconic monuments, from the soaring majesty of the Sydney Opera House to the colossal woven steel of the Bird's Nest Stadium. Their work is a testament to the immutable laws of physics, the strength of steel, the certainty of concrete. But what happens when that strength is built on something far more fragile than a structural blueprint? What happens when a solid foundation is made not of steel and concrete, but of silicone and lies? The time is early 2024. The catalyst is a seemingly mundane email. It arrived, as they so often do, a digital whisper bearing the name of a trusted colleague, the company's CFO, based thousands of miles away from Hong Kong in the United Kingdom. Now, our man was no fool. He was a professional, a sentinel at the gate, trained to spot the subtle tells of a digital deception. The grammatical missteps, the unnatural urgency, the mismatched sender details, all the telltale signs of a phishing attempt. And yet, there was a doubt. That small, nagging voice in the back of his mind, it required confirmation. It was a reasonable doubt, a human doubt. And so, a video conference was arranged, and it was here, in the cold light of a laptop screen, that his doubts were to be laid to rest. He joined the call, and there they were. The familiar faces, the trusted expressions, the presence of other colleagues, a silent, unspoken validation, the voices, the gestures, the very mannerisms, all in perfect, chilling sync. The call was a carefully choreographed performance. They spoke of a sensitive transaction, a delicate merger, a need for absolute secrecy. They spoke of the urgency of the moment and the need to move funds now to secure the deal. The CFO even referred to a recent company-wide meeting and a private detail known only to a very few, a humanizing touch that sealed the illusion. And in that moment, our man's suspicion, that flimsy veil of doubt, was torn away. His mind, trained to detect fraud, was now convinced of the opposite. His caution had been appeased, not by a leap of faith, but by the irrefutable evidence of his own eyes and ears. But what he didn't know, what he could not possibly know, was that his senses had become accomplices in his own deception. The faces on his screen were not faces, but a meticulously constructed lie. The voices in his ears were mimicry. They were carefully constructed, but only ghosts, born of a malevolent artificial intelligence. This wasn't some clumsy scam. It was a profound and unsettling forgery of human identity itself, a mimicry so precise it bypassed our most fundamental defense mechanism, the ability to discern a person from a mere reflection. He was not tricked by a clumsy hacker. He was convinced by a ghost in the machine, a ghost that wore the familiar face of a trusted colleague. And now the stage was set. The illusion was complete, and the transaction of $25 million was approved. It was in that terrifying moment that the twist of technological fate occurred. The funds were siphoned away across 15 different payments, a methodical digital drain of corporate lifeblood, a phantom taking what it wanted, one perfect digital step at a time. And so, the very tool of collaboration had now been turned into a weapon, a lie so convincing it was indistinguishable from the truth. So the attackers in this case likely used publicly available footage of the executives. What does this mean for corporate leaders and their public digital footprint, you think?
Yeah, it's very real. I mean, for someone like myself who's been on multiple podcasts and those sorts of things, and I mean, you can mine video very quick in today's world. It's a very real threat as far as that's concerned, right? The question is whether or not an adversary would want to take advantage of that weakness and take your video and do whatever they want, right? And for those folks out there who have more content, right? Every sound you could have ever made, every word you could have uttered is already able to be assembled out of just a few minutes worth of a podcast like this one. The thing that I love is all of those technologies from back in the day, which is verify me by my voice. Right? Well, what does that even mean now, right? And folks will, well, no, we can see the nuance in the, and how it was delivered. I don't know. My voice right now is being digitally uploaded, right? Put into a bunch of, it's not analog, right? It's not the entire thing. It's a very digital footprint, in which case the ability for it to capture and the error correction mechanism that's there, would it actually be able to pull that back? So I just look at it from this overall technology perspective as you have a set of crown jewels. Who wants to act in order to get those? And are you a tasty enough morsel in order to try and get after it? And folks really need to think through, what their control pieces are in order to prevent against, those types of an attacker.
So we've talked a lot about the threat of AI in terms of deepfakes. What role do you see AI playing on the defensive side? Can we use AI to fight back against deepfakes, you think?
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of my main calling cards or points, which is I really believe that we're in the clone wars. And this is across the board from all over the place, where today the adversary has really an unlimited number of clones that can attack us. They can use all sorts of free things in order to take low-cost shots at us. And we desperately need our own clone armies. Today, we're just a handful of Jedi that are out there trying to defend the entire universe against massive clone armies that can exist. And we really need those capabilities in-house so that we can deploy with increasing confidence the clones that will help defend our castle, our kingdoms against those adversaries in time. And I'm a very strong proponent that we really need to be working as one large security team, because the adversaries are a loosely coupled set of folks who share all of the same technology, and we end up, sort of battling all of those clone armies at once. Right? Just think about it this way. There are attackers today whose job it is to get a foothold. Once they have that foothold, they sell that foothold. The next person then advances in a lateral move and then sells the lateral move. Then from the lateral move, right, and it just continues forward. Then the individual actually has the data, right? So they were able to exfil. Now you have all of those pieces together, and they were able to do it with their whole clone army, right, at this point. And we have no defense, right? It's just a few Jedi who may or may not have configured the appropriate set of canaries, alerts, whatever that might be. And now we're defending that castle alone. And we can do it in an okay manner. But as the clones get better and better, as they get more and more sophisticated, it just becomes harder and harder. If you think about the existing bug bounty platforms that are out there today, right, they are absolutely flooded today, not with human researchers, but with all of the sort of clone armies that are out there trying to harvest bug bounties. And in which case, it's very simple then for them to turn against the actual crown jewels and decide that technology, right, once open sourced, whatever it might be, mimicked or otherwise, can then be used against us. So we need our own clone armies, and we need it in a hurry. So what I hear from a lot of folks is, hey, I can test you in this way, and I can test you in that way, and we can do this and we can do that. What I don't hear a lot of is, or really any of at this point, is here's a clone army that you can leverage in this way that will help defend you against these types of attacks in very real time.
So from a CISO's perspective, how do you balance a security-first culture with the need for a frictionless work environment where we are productivity focused?
Yeah, I love it. I like to think of it in terms of guardrails, not gates. So I like to reward good behavior. For those folks who are doing the right things and attempting to do the right things, I'd put together a fairly frictionless way for them to get things done. What does that look like in practice? I'll take a very simple example. We have many different ways that we do this, but here's a simple one. Should you complete your annual security awareness training on time, you keep your access. Should you not, my bot in the background just turns you off. That's it. There's no there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then folks are like, well, how come I lost my access? And my team can respond, well, I don't know. Did you complete your security awareness training? And, so we all know what to do at a particular time, right? And so for those folks that completed it on time, they have frictionless access, and continue to have that access. And in a world where you provide those types of capabilities, folks will tend to do the things which allow them to work at speed and with less friction. So we balance these things all the time, right? Because the biggest risk we have is that we add so much friction that we go out of business.
Yeah.
Right. So we are accepting, right, too little risk. Or are we accepting too much risk, in which case somebody gets our crown jewels, and that's the problem. So it's always a balance, right? We're trying to balance that amount of risk. And if we do it effectively, then the business can sort of operate at speed.
The truth, when it came, arrived like a cold, sharp rain. The investigation revealed no broken firewalls or weak passwords. There was no crime of code here. This was a crime of consciousness. It was a hunt for a shadow, a specter that left no digital footprints of its own, only the ghostly echo of others. The perpetrators did not breach the perimeter, they bypassed it entirely. They did not hack a system, they hacked the human. They used artificial intelligence to create a perfect facsimile of the Arup CFO and his colleagues. This wasn't the clumsy, low-resolution deepfake of a bygone era. No, this was a masterpiece of deception, a meticulously crafted mosaic of stolen identity. The algorithms were sophisticated and chillingly patient and had scoured the digital world for their source material. Consider for a moment all of the public videos, from the corporate presentations, the news interviews, social media profiles, and even internal corporate communications. Every subtle facial twitch, every unique vocal inflection, and every way the head tilted in concentration. All of it was collected and analyzed. The criminals found an identity's digital trail of breadcrumbs and used it to build a flawless yet soulless digital puppet. This wasn't mere mimicry, it was replication, an AI-driven simulacrum that was, for all intents and purposes, real. The attackers didn't need to forcibly take the $25 million, no. It was willingly delivered with the obedient smile of an employee certain he was doing a good job. This chilling ingenuity represents a fundamental shift in the landscape of cybercrime. The target is no longer the server, it's the person behind the screen. It is a new kind of social engineering, enhanced with the most sophisticated tools known to man. It speaks to a profound and unsettling truth about our digital age, that our very identity is now a commodity, a set of data points that can be stolen, manipulated, and worn like a mask. The criminals were not just thieves, they were digital puppeteers, and the strings were invisible. They turned trust into a weapon using the very technology that was meant to bring us closer, to create a chasm of deception. They understood the psychology of the human mind, its need for verification, its reliance on sight and sound, and they exploited it with a clinical precision. But the tools of their trade were a grim inventory. The deepfake technology was built not from scratch, but from readily available machine learning frameworks. The voice synthesis was likely off-the-shelf software tweaked for specific accents and cadences. This wasn't the work of a lone genius, but a sophisticated criminal syndicate. They understood that the most powerful weapon is not a complex piece of malware, but a simple lie, perfectly executed. They didn't just target the employee. They targeted the entire social and professional ecosystem of the victim. The presence of fake colleagues on the call created a sense of shared responsibility, of a confidential group working toward a common goal. It preyed on the human desire to belong, to not be the one to question a trusted circle. This was a premeditated, calculated assault on the very architecture of human perception. The true act of violence was not the theft of funds, but the theft of certainty itself. It was the moment a professional's lifetime of experience was turned against him by a meticulously constructed lie. So let's play a game. Let's imagine that in the hours after this breach, Arup finds out that they've got to deal with this. They've got to make some changes in-house across continents, and they call up Mark Dorsi and they say, "Hey, we need to make some changes." What would you say if you were brought in would be the top 3 priorities immediately following the discovery of this fraud? What would you do? What would you change?
Yeah. So I like to focus again on the crown jewel. I would take a look at, who has access to those crown jewels individually or otherwise, and understand in that moment whether or not that is the riskiest crown jewel that they have. Once breached, right, you'll be picked on again for another attack. That's just the way the world works. So you're going to want to ensure that you shore up those controls quickly so that a repeat attack, of course, can't occur. And a company will say, "Oh, well, that would never happen." It happens all the time. The repeat attack, can happen very quickly, and especially if you're, or in parallel, right? Especially if you're not prepared in order to do so. So the very first thing is take a look at the crown jewels, who has access to them, identify any other crown jewels that could be weakness, and then really talk about the processes that they have in place and what needs to change for them to really understand that, okay, this isn't the path we'd want to take in the future, and then understand whether or not you've put in a sufficient number of checks and balances so that the kill chain there is broken, right? Which is, you want to ensure that you've put in enough friction so that you've balanced out the risk and understood, okay, what went wrong, all right, and then come back and understand, all right, what changes do we need to make? I am not a fan of really tipping over the entire apple cart unless you absolutely have to. What I think needs to typically happen is some incremental improvements will probably go a long way, and some overall training. It's also a moment where the security team tends to get a bit more attention from the executive staff, and so we have opportunity to shore up other areas that have been prior identified and that need help. So here's what I would say. I've been a part of organizations in the past where we have known what the challenges are, right, for a very long period of time. But until you have an issue in that area, right, there's no way of knowing, right, that, just how real the risk is. You've tried to quantify it, you've let folks know, you've qualified it, all of the things, but you have other business priorities. Well, in this moment that they have opportunity. The opportunity is, where else do we need to shore up? And because I would imagine the teams already understood that they were a bit weak in that area, but they had accepted the risk so they could move at the speed of business, right? They had a trustworthy individual who never made a mistake in 27 years. 27 years, right? But on that day, right, it all added up. $1 million a year, right? $1 million per year of employment, right? But they took the risk, right? They risked their crown jewel, right, in that particular way by not having, maybe separate holders of the MFA or whatever it might be, the proper control that they would have, right? Triple approval process, whatever that is, all the way back to the home. But I would definitely go in, analyze from a crown jewel perspective, work my way out, understand with the security team what else they thought what the weaknesses were, and then work with the different business units because they're the ones who have direct access and need to move at speed. Right? Yeah. And so how do we add just the right amount of friction so that particular attack, as well as the other ones that we're probably aware of, never can happen again?
How would you advise employees in a situation like this to verify the authenticity of a request from a senior executive? What mechanisms can you suggest?
I love that. It goes back to the number one, and this could be difficult culturally, but question authority. Just because I'm coming from a position of authority, it's one of the big things that I champion with my teams and orgs is it's fine to question authority. You don't need to be rude about it, but at the same time, there are many ways to question authority, which is, phone a friend. Like, this seems really weird and out of the blue. Does this sound weird to you, right? And be that skeptic, right? So, and it's okay. And that's where, being having that piece of the business in your mind and and sort of, being the owner operator, even if, you're not necessarily, but you should really act in that way, which is, as the owner operator, what would you do? Well, if I was going to wire $25 million, which maybe I do it every day, right? But why today did the CEO get on the phone with me? Why in this way? Why are they the ones challenging, right? So it's okay to challenge back and say, actually, thanks for this, but I'm going to give you a call in your cell phone.
Act 3. The price of a secret. The Arup heist was not just a news story. It was a profound signal. It told us that the old rules no longer apply. It told us that our financial systems, once built on the certainty of steel and human oversight, are now vulnerable to an unseen, undetectable enemy. The attack was a wake-up call, a testament to the fact that security is not just about firewalls and procedures. It's about a fundamental shift in human consciousness. It's about an understanding that the trust we place in a digital handshake can be broken by a phantom, a whisper, an AI ghost in the machine. It forces us to reconsider every interaction, every communication. For all CISOs and security professionals, the lesson is clear, and it is haunting. Protecting the perimeter is no longer enough. The enemy is already inside, using our own tools against us. The new battleground is not the network interface, it is the human psyche. The new question is not what is real, but how can I prove that what I see and what I hear is real? This is the new reality we inhabit. A world where the most sophisticated tool of deception is not a mask, but the perfect imitation of a face you know and trust. We must now live in a state of perpetual, quiet vigilance, where our greatest asset is a healthy dose of skepticism. The financial loss is significant, yes, but the deeper consequence is the erosion of faith in the very medium of our global collaboration. We have built a world on screens and voices, and now those screens and voices can be turned against us. The answer perhaps lies not in more technology, but in a return to a more profound human vigilance, in building systems not just of code, but of a new kind of skepticism. It's about recognizing that the greatest security may not be a line of code, but the wisdom of a human eye and the courage to question even what appears to be a certainty. We have moved beyond the age of simple phishing emails and weak passwords, and we have entered the age of AI-powered deception, where the attack is tailored to bypass human cognitive defenses. The technical controls we've painstakingly put in place, our multi-factor authentication, our network firewalls, our intrusion detection systems, these are all still vital, but they are no longer sufficient. The Arup case proves that even a perfectly secure network can be exploited by an attack that never touches its digital walls. The true threat lies not in a network vulnerability, but in a psychological one. What does this mean for the future? It means that security awareness training needs to evolve from spotting typos to validating human identity. It means we must build new protocols of trust requiring out-of-band verification for high-stakes transactions. It means that the most powerful tool in your security arsenal may soon be a simple phone call on a number that is known. We are tasked with rebuilding the architecture of trust brick by brick in a world where a phantom can wear the face of our friend. I've got one more question for you before I let you go. Clearly, you've got years and years of experience and you've seen all kinds of crazy instances. Is there anything that has shocked you, that has surprised you, that you still look back at and maybe gives you a little chill, that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, that this was just so brilliant, so clever, so unbelievable? Anything pop to mind?
Yeah, I mean, that original one that I spoke about. And the reason that was so good is that would be such an effective attack today. With technology available and the ability to just have a bot keep that thread warm for you across so many things, that's what gives me the chills today. is the ability for an attacker to build trust through cell phone number. Hey, this is Bob. Oh, hey, Bob. Yeah, just, Bob. Then it sends a text. Oh, hey, did you see this thing that we just did? Oh my gosh, the results that we got financially. All those things can be a bot today. And they build trust. They could spend 2 months building trust with a text message that happens every 5 days or 2 days, a configurable amount, right? And that ability to build trust is the one where that's where folks fall victim. Where at the end of all of it, right, you had an individual build this trust moment. Early in my career, we had a trust moment built between this legacy network. An individual was able to infiltrate this legacy network that was sort of a global network, and they were able to infiltrate it and have full access to it. And the way they did it was they built trust with the operator of the network. And they just started to pretend like they were an actual contractor of that company. And they had just pretended long enough that eventually they started using them for real tasks in order to get work done on the network. And they just said, oh yeah, well I need my password reset. Oh, I don't see your account in here. Well, I should have an account in there. I mean, I've been blah, blah, blah. I'm working in this other area. And they were able to just infiltrate in that time, right? But they had built up trust with the operator of the network over months. And eventually, right, I discovered them, sort of moving around in the network, and we had to bump them out, and we had a full-on incident and those sorts of things in order to figure out how to get it, taken care of. In a similar way, right, you have these trust moments that can be built over time, but now you can have these sort of keep alive, keep warm moments that could go on a very long time from a cell phone number, then the cell phone, hey, could you update my cell phone number in Slack? I don't know how to do it. Then the cell phone number gets updated in Slack, right? Now everybody's using that number in order to get a hold of you. Now it's completely out of band. How often do you think organizations are actually checking the personal information that's sitting in your HRIS, right? It's up to the individual to keep it there, right? But you can wholesale overtake an identity, probably with just, the Starbucks card attack that I mentioned earlier, and just, making friends, right? They're like, the thing that I see wrong today with the gift card attack is that they go for it right away. Instead of just having a moment where like, hey, this is Matt, just wanted to welcome you to the team. Here's my cell phone if you ever need it. You can do that to thousands and thousands and thousands of individuals, right? Just welcoming you to the team. I'm Fred with this company. I'm Bob with that. Sally from here, right? Joni from there, right? You could have all of these sort of things, and you can build warm attacks. And that's the piece that gets me, because now you're able to build trust over time, and now you've really clouded what the environment looks like. So I've just probably given a bunch of people ideas out there, but that's the thing that keeps me awake at night is the trust moment and how you verify trust. Trust, but verify. So the most important thing is that, great, I have a piece of information that I feel like I should be able to trust. Can I verify it? Right? And that's really what we work with IT teams, is the ability to verify that an individual is who they say they are because of this body of evidence versus just sort of one piece.
Excellent. Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it, and hope you come back again soon.
Yeah, 100%. I really enjoyed this. Thanks so much. This was fantastic.
My pleasure. And now, the final chapter. And so we live with this haunting truth. We now live in a world where a video call is not always a video call, where a voice that seems familiar may be anything but. A world where our most basic human senses can be used to deceive us. We've crossed into a new dimension, one where the line between what is real and unreal is blurred, where the silent specters of cyberspace can reach out and touch our lives. The very tools that we have created to connect us now stand poised to betray us. We are living in an era where the enemy wears not a mask of an alien adversary, but our own face. We've built a digital tower of trust, believing it to be impenetrable. And in a single moment, an AI ghost in the machine showed us that the foundation was not as solid as we believed. The signal has been sent, a whisper from the void, a warning for those who still feel confident that seeing is believing. The question is, are we listening? Have we learned to trust the unease in our gut more than the perfect image on a screen? We must now walk in a state of perpetual caution, where our greatest asset is a healthy dose of skepticism, and our most powerful tool is the courage to question all that appears to be real. And so, we remain forever vigilant and always listening for the CISO signal. All episodes are based on publicly available reports, postmortems, and expert analysis. While we've done our best to ensure accuracy, some cybersecurity incidents evolve over time and not all details have been confirmed. Our goal is to inform and entertain, not to assign blame. Where facts are unclear, we've used cautionary language, and we always welcome your corrections. Thanks for listening to the CISO Signal.